And we're back to the round table. 3 of the same people. 2 new guests. We'll see if they're coming back to dinner anytime soon. Koho, welcome. A lot of doubt of having you on the show. People thought you would watch these at fast speed, but we made an agreement to everybody watching normal speed. How are you doing? What did you bring?
I'm doing good. I really hope the new places internet does not screw me over. I'm hoping it stays. I'm excited to be here. I brought Eurovision Song Contest: The Story of Fire Saga, the masterpiece of the pandemic.
It's just shocking that I've never heard you on any other podcast talk in depth about this movie, but it's interesting that you did it twice. Next up, we'll go to Bar. Welcome. How you doing? What'd you bring? You're muted, which is a good start. We're leaving it in.
That sounds about right. I've been up since 3 a.m. I'm good otherwise. I brought the boys from Brazil.
No, but what movie did you bring?
Somebody had to say
we keep Scott around for the jokes.
Yeah.
Only the jokes.
Speaking of Brian, what green bean casserole from the 90s did you bring this time?
I did not this time. This time I brought the one that everyone here had already seen, but I still want to talk about more. That is 2020's The Harder They Fall.
And Scott, what indie darling did you bring that no one has ever seen?
I guess it's kind of an indie darling, but yeah, I went foreign language again for the second time in a row. I picked Park Chan-wook's The Handmaiden.
And I brought Love and Basketball because we need to talk about sports ball and love. So that's what we're doing today. Basically how the show works is we're all just going to talk about we all watched our movie separately. We're all just going to talk about how we feel, have a free-flowing conversation. The first one up, The Handmaiden. Just finished watching this. So Scott, what'd you bring? Why'd you bring this to us?
Yeah, so again, The Handmaiden is the film I chose. I chose it for a few reasons. Number one, it is another foreign language film, like I said, just trying to expand the palette of people in the community. It's the second time in a row that I've chosen a foreign film. I tried to choose ones that I feel are going to be very watchable, which I think this movie certainly is. Park Chan-wook also has a new movie out this year, Decision to Leave, which I highly, highly recommend. It's excellent, so I wanted to kind of recommend it for that reason, because maybe, people get into it and want to watch Decision to Leave. Most people have probably seen Old Boy already, which of course is also his, but so those two reasons, and also just because I think this is not only is it a foreign language film, but it's the type of movie that American filmmakers, a lot of them don't have the balls to make, I think, because for a lot of reasons. It's tonally, I think the tone of this movie, his control over it, is pretty masterful. He's able to keep it on this fine line between campy and actually genuinely thrilling and exciting and serious, without ever leaning too far in one direction so that it becomes distracting. And again, he just really goes for it in some of these scenes in this movie, and the storytelling. I mean, there's twists all over the place. It's just the type of thing, like I said, I don't think enough American filmmakers are attempting, let alone pulling off. And that's why I wanted, to kind of get everyone else's thoughts about it, because I feel like this is the type of movie where, you would watch it and all of a sudden get excited about foreign language films. It kind of reminds me, music wise, I don't know if anyone listens to K-pop or anything like that, but K-pop is doing things from a production standpoint that you just don't get in American music, American pop music, messing around with tempos and all this, doing crazy shifts in the middle of songs. And you have a standard pop song, and then all of a sudden there's a rap bridge and stuff in it. It's just, they just really go for it. And I feel the same way in, Asian cinema in particular. So it's a very fun movie. It's a very entertaining movie and watchable movie. I'm curious to know what you guys think, because I think only Brian had seen it before.
Yeah, so definitely doesn't have the balls, and clearly from the movie it does not. But
Well, at the end,
what I
at
will
the end,
There
Well,
were balls.
that's what
Yeah.
that's what I will say. Jingle the bells or whatever. I will never look at those the same way.
I didn't even mean
That
that.
is probably
What's this movie then? Is this-
rewatch the Polar Express now.
that is
God.
probably
No.
I'm gonna be. I don't. I was when it happened. So to get the elephant in the room out of the way, this movie has some of the most aggressive sex scenes that I have ever seen in a movie ever.
Yeah.
There was moments I went, one, didn't really look into it, didn't really know much about it, have a big screen TV in my house, quickly at times had to switch that thing to a smaller screen because it was just, I didn't know what was happening. I would like to make a list of like the ballsiest last or like questionable last shots in films or like scenes. This one would definitely be up there for me. I say for the roundtable, I think we've done 2.5. If you count let's count that 3 foreign films in the 5 episodes. I think we're doing pretty well for ourselves, especially somebody. I am not a fan of foreign films normally, or I do not. I shouldn't say not a fan. I don't seek them out often. They get recommended, or they show up on a YLS episode, or they get. So I don't visit them often. This show is a perfect example they're bringing to the forefront. This movie is all over the place, but I think that's the intention of it. Like it definitely shows up. Like there's stuff that happens, and then the third act, there's twists and turns and blah blah. So I thought it was very interesting. I didn't overall love the film as much. I don't know if Brian gave it 4 stars, which I didn't think Brian would give it 4 stars. But when he initially watched it, I don't know how he feels now. But so how did everybody else feel going into it? Did you know much about this film prior? I had no clue about it.
This is literally the first movie from this director that I've ever seen.
Well, that's true too. I have not seen Old Boy either.
I also have not seen Old Boy.
I honestly, a coworker of mine recommended it.
This is better in my opinion.
So, interesting, ballsy. Yeah, I didn't.
We all stop saying balls. I'm a little tired of this part of the conversation.
It's just too fitting for this movie.
Ballsy.
It is.
Don't like that either.
I did not know what to expect. I knew of this director and like some of the films that they had made, so I kind of had like a slight idea, but I had no idea what to expect going into this. I really like this film a lot. I will say that I think that some scenes go a little too long.
It's a long movie. It's a long movie. If we're being real, this is a little too long for my take on what the story, overall arcing story. The movie is too long.
So
I will just say, as a counter to that I think it's constantly changing and unraveling, and so I don't think the length is as much of a problem because like it's almost like the movie is resetting when you get to the second chapter, right? And now it's like a whole new movie in a way is beginning because we're seeing everything else from a different character's perspective.
I agree with that in terms of story. I mean, just like particular scenes.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. The sex scenes were too excessive.
A little bit too long.
I mean,
at the point
at times they probably.
Shut up, Brian.
But no, I agree. The way that the story weaves and just like twists and tangles, like once it gets to a particular point, let's call it the end of the first act. I was not expecting that, and then like once halfway through like the second act, I realized what was happening, and I was in completely.
Let's talk where because I have the end of the first act is when she gets committed to the which I think is the biggest plot hole of this film. And I'm the only one that's crazy because she has a verbal confirmation out loud in this film, or in her thought to the audience, I guess. Maybe not out loud about that this person's evil, blah blah. But it was an entire plan at the end revealed in the third act. Is that not what happened? Because that's what I gathered. She says it, we hear it. And then the third act, they reveal that it's all like this was the overall planned all along to do
Well, yeah,
this.
because
But
they're going to set the fire and break her out of the asylum and everything.
but
like that.
why
That's-
would she say it? Like, if it was an internal thought, why say that out loud if she knew, if she was in on the plan?
Because they
say
needed the
what?
guy to buy it.
Yeah. Say what line are you talking
But
about?
she doesn't say it
I'm
to
not
the
gonna lie.
guy.
None of you are selling me on Cody's plot hole. I had the same plot hole.
No, like I know, I'm saying I don't know, I can't think of the exact dialogue, but she says it when like she's getting pulled away from the like when they're like I guess she calls him a son of a or something like that, and she says the line. She says that she is a bad woman or something like that. She says like the phrase like she says it like it's not to him, it's not verbal, it's internal. It's like an overall internal like thing. So, but she's in on it. So why have that? Why have that moment? If you eliminate that line, it doesn't mean anything.
I just write that off as like the fact that she is narrating it all. This is not like she's not like writing a journal or anything. It's actually narrating to the audience. I think it's just that the narrating to the audience. They want you to buy into it, so it's that much more of a twist when they get to it.
Well,
it's just the whole.
And also, I think there are times when her attitudes are shifting a little bit because she is. You know, there's a question of what's play acting, what's not, and you could say that at some point she does kind of turn against I can't even Lady Hideko because of like the attention she's showing towards the Count now, and it's like, oh well, maybe she's just acting, or maybe she's like actually falling for him or whatever. Like you know, there's constant double crossing and question marks. I think even in the minds of the characters because it's just one plot inside of another. Like all it takes is one person changing their mind, and everything comes unraveled. So.
Because my take on that is
obviously we know that these characters are in love with each other at a certain point, but because of that, there's jealousies, there's little doubts and things like that can creep in as well.
I guess my take on that is that she doesn't say that. I understand what Brian's saying, which makes a little bit more sense for me. Because if she says it, then it like infirms to the audience when the twist happens, it's bigger. But if she doesn't say that, the twist still works for me. I guess that's the part that took me out of it versus where it like put in. But that's neither here. I think the twist was very shocking. I did not see that twist coming when it happened. It was when she gets committed to when she gets put into the
asylum,
like when that reveal happens, like the standoff. You think like maybe this won't happen, and it does. I thought that was pretty impressive. Brian, what's your overall thoughts? You saw this movie prior, so I'm kind of interested on a rewatch. When was your first time watching it? Like, I guess.
I saw it a few years ago. I think right after it first came out because it got recommended to me. I'm not real big on foreign films. I will say the one area I do tend to watch the most is South Korean films, just because they seem to have. I really seem to enjoy their style, whether it be horror movies like Train to Busan or like Parasite or this, or even I've seen some comedies and things that are really good. So South Korean cinema is one that I really do enjoy. And this director particularly, of course, Old Boy is a great film. He also did a great one that not a lot of people have seen called Thirst. It's essentially a vampire film. His American one, Stoker, not real good. Skip that one. But I had seen this one before. And I really like the way he directs it, the way everything looks too. I think that he does a really good job of. I mean, clearly there's a lot of scenes in here that could be real exploitative, real controversial and shocking, but I think he shoots them in a way that they don't come across that way. It comes across as part of the story. It comes across as something that's well directed and not just saying, hey, look, here's a sex scene, shoved into your movie. It actually has to do with the story. So I really like the way it's directed. I watched this movie with my family last night. No, I'm kidding. I did the same thing you did, though. There were a couple times I had to pause. Somebody was walking in the room, like, "Wait,
Parent of the Year, or maybe not. I don't know how this will work."
But honestly, upon rewatch, I had forgotten almost everything about this movie. I remember there being a twist. I could not remember what the twist was, and so you got to the end of Act 1, and then it takes a twist. I'm like, "Oh yeah, now I remember." But even then, I was still kind of following to the end, trying to remember how it ends, things like that. That's one thing I really do like about not only this film, but it seems to be a big thing in a lot of South Korean films. Like even Parasite was kind of like this, where you spend like half the movie or the first act of the movie kind of watching the story unfold. You kind of, okay, this is a good story, whatever. But then it like takes this turn and you see the entire story from like another point of view, which completely changes everything you just watched. And I really like movies that do that because it makes you think of what people's motivations are, how it got to this, what you kind of see what was going on the other side of the wall when certain things are happening. So I enjoyed it just as much this time as the first time.
Yeah, and on that point, I really enjoy that type of structure as well. And I will say, I'm not going to spoil anything, but there is a American film still to officially come out later this year on a streaming service, which has the same sort of structure, which I enjoyed very much. Which some of us have already seen, I believe, on the call. But anyway,
Gotcha. Cole, your thoughts? I know you haven't said much.
I'm gonna get creamed by people in group chats for this. Asian cinema is not easy for me to get into. Parasite's like a rare exception where I just think Parasite's a very accessible movie. Handmaiden wasn't that for me. I had a hard time getting into it. I respect the hell out of Park Chan-wook's, like, to quote Bar, I respect it more than I like it. I think Park Chan-wook directs it really well. I think that I can see what he's going for. I like that he's ambitious enough to go for it and not half-ass it. Like, just be like, everything he does, he's committing fully. And I appreciate it, but it wasn't my vibe. So I struggled a lot watching this one. So it's not. I don't know if we say this or anything, but it's probably my least favorite one I watched of the 5. So
No, I mean, and that's fine. There were parts where I was like, I was always bouncing in and out of is it just gonna miss for me for this? Like, it wasn't an overall like slam dunk. Like, there are a few tonight that were slam dunk. Like, I enjoyed a lot. Well, I guess that doesn't even fair because I've seen them. But for this one, it was like I just didn't like the intrigue of the story brought me in, and
right.
what I've heard about this director, like, he does these bold, like, shocking almost like moments in film because basically he bends the medium basically where no one else will at times. That's
Right.
why the aggressive sex scenes are where they are in the film and how long they last and how like in your face
Yeah.
they are. But he does it because like I guess he can. And it doesn't. And the thing is, it involves with the story of showing how much like this relationship very built on lust. If we're being fair, like
lust is like an
Because-
underlying theme.
because her brain has been poisoned from a young
Right.
age by
No.
him forcing her to
Right.
read these dirty books.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's what I'm saying. That's why we're going. Like that's how they express their feelings towards each other. You can just clearly see it throughout it. So that's where in those scenes. So he doesn't just do it to random, but he does it, and when he does it, it's just like it's shot because if you're not used to that kind of cinema, or you're not used to that, like in American films, we don't have like that. When House of Gucci came out and that scene is in there with Lady Gaga, that's everyone that's talked about. What is this? Why is it so long? It's in here and blah blah. And then if they saw this, they'd be like,
I know, like it's
we have nothing to complain about.
This is
We
like
have nothing
twice
to
as
complain.
long as that scene.
So my thing is like he does that. He's pretty bold with it. But the intrigue of the story, like the twists and turns, kept me invested in it long enough.
Sure.
I just have a problem with the runtime, and I get it, Scott. There's no shot at it, but it's a hefty runtime. All these movies had hefty runtimes for me this week, which is fine. But this one seemed like the longest to me. I don't know the actual, maybe the version I watched. I don't know if there's directors, but mine was very long, right? Like 2 hours and 40.
Well, no, it is. And in this case, I mean, there's a reason for it because there's a lot of scenes that you're basically watching twice. So I think that's one of the reasons you can go down longer than others.
Yeah.
I will be interested to see if y'all watch Decision to Leave, and you should, what you think, because it has a romance that is one of the driving forces of it, but it is the exact antithesis of this, which is that the characters in the romance, they only share a kiss like at the very end of the movie, and that's it. There's nothing more than that happens, but it's a very effective romance, I think. But also, the movie is a police procedural, and again, you see like this is just what he does. He's blending genres all over the place, and I mean, I actually think the romance is very different here, but it works. And then you also have this crazy erotic thriller going on that, like, also.
Yeah, it
keeps
never
you
opened
hooked.
here, but I'm getting a free movie trial this week just so I can watch it. So.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought
it
the
is.
romance-
It is on
I thought the
movie now.
romance in this movie was built up so well and just like so naturally, even though the way that this movie kind of like twists and turns could have like easily thrown that off. But I thought the way that the romance built in this was really well done.
And what they're able to build up too is like when the twist happens at the end of the first one, you feel for the twist, like the shocking like takeaway, because you're like, what was this whole first act? Like this whole first act was like, what are we doing? And you just threw it away like it was nothing. Like so, it's shocking. What that's what I will say about it. They do, and the decision to leave is no one and that I follow on Letterboxd has given it under 4 stars. So. And there's a few shocking people that have seen it that give it positive. So give it a shot, absolutely.
And
got
I
anything else?
also I wanted to say that I think the cast is really good in the movie. I think Kim Min Hee, who plays Lady Hideko, she's probably the standout.
I was going to
because
bring
she's
up the
doing-
exact same person as the
Yeah.
standout.
she's doing so many different things in her performance, because again, she's playing like the very demure girl in the first act, right? And you think she's so naive. What is it that Suki says? Something like, "Oh, a man could like grab her nipple or something, and she would have no idea what it means." And you think that she's like completely innocent and naive, and then you realize that she's in on it more, but then you realize that the feelings that she has are real. So there's just a lot of like layers and disguising things really well in her performance. And she's been in a lot of movies with Hong Sang-soo, who's another big Korean director. And so she's like kind of a notable actress. I hope she'll be in. I don't know if she's been in any American films yet, but she deserves some attention because I think she's really good in this.
Okay. We'll go around. We'll get ratings for it. Scott, where are you at on this movie?
4.5. It's great. I highly recommend people to check it out. If you're interested in exploring more foreign films, despite what we've said about the sex scenes and everything, I do think it is one of the more watchable, accessible, entry points for foreign language films. It's contemporary. It like has a crazy, fast-paced, genre-bending plot where you're going to be like, what is going to happen next? You're going to at least make it through to the end. So for that reason, I definitely would recommend it to most people. So 4.5.
Brian, still at 4? Or did it go?
For me, it held at a solid 4 stars, and I think the jingle bells at the end make it a Christmas movie, so everybody should check it out.
Yes.
Hate that.
Who? Bar, what are we at?
If Letterboxd would let me have my quarter score option, it would be 4.25. But I would give it a 4.5.
Oh my god, could you imagine Tim doesn't use half stars and you're out there using quarter? That would be the highlight. Koho, where are you at?
I'm at 3 stars. I put it right there in the middle, to the point where I can't go higher than that, because I can't say I even really necessarily enjoyed the experience of watching it. But it's not because it's bad; it's because I'm the problem. To quote Scott's favorite genius,
I'm
the problem. It's me. But I respect Park Chan-wook and what he's going for, but it's not for me. So I give it to him.
How you talked, I thought it was going to be lower. That 3's fine. I'm giving it 3.5. I think it's fine. I think it's I don't know how often I'll ever check it out, but I again didn't hate my time with it. All right, so we're gonna go to the next movie. The Boys from Brazil.
Yes.
So Bar, take it away.
So I was introduced to this movie by another coworker of mine. Shout out to Eve, who was like, "Hey, I think you would really like this." She told me it had Gregory Peck, and I saw that it had Laurence Olivier, and I was like, "Oh, okay, really interesting." I didn't look up any of the plot before watching this movie, and so The Boys from Brazil follows this Nazi hunter played by Laurence Olivier, who is pretty much informed that this group of Nazis is gathering together in Brazil, led by Gregory Peck's character, who plays a great villain in this. And so he finds out that they've been assigned to kill a specific amount of men, all civil servants, around this exact time period. And it's this great kind of mystery as to what's happening, what's going on, why these specific men, why this specific time. And as the clock starts dwindling down and things start, coming to a climax, the levels of, the hatred that Gregory Peck's character has intensifies, and the desperation of Laurence Olivier's character intensifies. And it comes to this really, it's kind of campy, but it's just the right level of camp, to the point where it doesn't push you too far away. It makes it a lot more fun. So I noticed that no one on this panel had seen it before. I thought it's a movie that not a lot of people know about, and I think a lot more people should. I think it's a really fun, really intriguing film.
Okay. So when you said that campy, this is the one of the movies that I think honestly would benefit from a remake. And the reason why I'll say it, because I think in '78 there are so many like direct like styles that they choose or things that makes this overly campy. Like the stuff that they could add to modern technology, I think would possibly. Because one, this is still a conspiracy theory out there today that there are people, the Nazis live in Brazil. It's common. Like when I heard this, I was like, "Oh my god!" Okay, so they made a movie in the '70s about the because people that still talk about it today. Overall, this movie had stuff I really liked about it and stuff I really hated about it, and it was like a mixture because it was very campy, but I enjoyed like the overall performances of the story behind it. I thought like the final two scenes of the movie I think is probably where the crux of it was, where the jump from like to dislike went rapid at times for me. Because I think the intense stuff, like, if we just talk about the movie overall, like when they're all deciding, like the plant, they're planting because it has Steve Guttenberg in it, and like the dude, like the Goot is in that, which I couldn't get past that after seeing that because Mike just has bombarded me with Steve Guttenberg for a year and a half now. But as soon as his face popped up on the screen, I was like, "Oh my god!"
And
but when
he's one of the first people you see.
Yeah.
Yes. When he showed, I was like, "Is that Steve Guttenberg?" When they do the bug inside the house, and you see like the actual like anger from Gregory Peck for like the first time in the film, I'm like, okay, I can get behind this. Like, this is sweet where we're going because I don't look at Gregory Peck and think of this character at all.
Oh, there's one line that he says later in the film that you're just kind of like,
yeah. What's the line?
He has a lot of good lines.
Shut up, you ugly bitch.
I was gonna say, when he talks to the old woman.
Yeah. But overall, I think this is just a one. Definitely feel the '70s on it, but definitely has that campy and like vibe. So that was my overall thoughts. Everybody else, anybody hear about this film prior? Or what's your initial thoughts of it?
I have been bombarded by Kaleb Boatman to watch this movie for a long time already. So I was like, all right, time to watch this finally, because I think Boatman was like on either an Olivier kick or a James Mason kick or something, and he like told me to watch this one. And James Mason is maybe my favorite part of the movie, which I did not expect. I really like him. I think Peck is like so fun, like stupid fun. You were talking about how like they should remake it. They kind of did, not really. It's a TV show on Amazon called Hunters, and Al Pacino plays the Laurence Olivier role. It's sort of that, but it's not exactly that. Fair. It's sort of this, but not this. So I was watching this the whole time, just in the back of my head, being like, oh, it's kind of like Killers, and I love Killers. So I'm like, this is really. I love the cheese factor. I loved like the Gregory Peck's. He betrayed you. He betrayed me. He betrayed the Aryan race. I think he's so over the top at times, and it's so fucking fun to watch. So I enjoyed this quite a bit, actually. So.
Look, I think we just talked about a movie. we just talked about a movie that I think, again, the thing maybe which stands out to me the most is like the tonal control and the way that it's able to keep the train on the tracks. Not here. I think that this movie wants to be too many different competing things at once and is not made with enough precision to sort
Oh
of
no, we'll
pull
talk
that
about
off.
that movie later.
Well, maybe. But I think, look, I love stuff that is campy, but to me, it needs to be like knowingly campy. And I don't know. I think they want to
How
have
do
their
you not
cake.
think that this isn't knowingly campy?
I think they want to have their cake and eat it here too, because I think they want it to be like this pulse pounding, like thriller, like, oh, how did this happen, or how could this happen, could this actually happen, like, this sort of scientific genetic element in there that's meant to sort of mess with your mind. But then you have all this ridiculous stuff going on that in my opinion takes you out of the movie. And I think the performances were like maybe the main villain for me in this. Not to make him catch a stray or anything here, but I was looking at Kirk's review and he was saying that this, the plot gets crazy at times, but the performances ground the movie. I'm sorry, Kirk, but what movie are you watching? Because Laurence Olivier's accent in this movie is awful. I could not take a single thing he did seriously. He was doing a bad Sigmund Freud impersonation. Like, that was literally his character. And Gregory Peck, like, I kind of liked him at first, but it just goes, it goes too far over the top. I thought the kid actor was awful. I didn't understand what he was doing at the end of the movie when he comes back home and he's just like chilling there and he's like, whoa. And
My
he's
favorite
taking
line of
pictures
this
of them.
entire
I'm like, what
movie.
is going on?
My favorite moment in this entire movie is when Gregory Peck is sitting there and goes, "You are from the greatest person of all time, Adolf Hitler." And the kid goes, "You're crazy, man." Like,
Yeah.
it's like the
Was
worst.
that your reaction?
You're weird or something like that. Yeah.
I
You're
love it.
weird, man. Like,
Now,
it's
and
just like he's giving
I
like
kind
this performance and pausing every time, and he's like, "Yeah, well, whatever, man."
I kind of like that they'd like ended on a haunting note of like, oh, but what if the damage is already done, right? And this kid like is now snapped or whatever. Like, I thought that was an interesting way to end the movie. And I liked some of the like, procedural, like Laurence Olivier, like just going around, like talking to all these random people, like trying to figure out exactly what's going on, even though I think it's pretty clear what's going on, like not that long into the movie. Like, I don't think it should have taken him as long to figure it out as he did. But again, the accent and the like, I couldn't take it seriously, and I did have the feeling that the movie wanted me to take it at least a little bit seriously. So yeah, it didn't fully land for me, unfortunately, but like it's very watchable, like, and the story is crazy and like not something you'll see in other movies, obviously.
So I had heard of the movie. I had never seen it. I think that I looked at, I mean, even though I'd seen good reviews, I looked at it and see Laurence Olivier and Gregory Peck and James Mason, and it just looks like the kind of stuffy 70s drama that I'm not going to enjoy. But I thought I'll check it out. And of course, the first thing I see is Stu Gutenberg. So I think it's like, Police Academy Assignment Brazil or whatever it is.
Oh God.
But it's one of those strange. I mean, obviously it's early in his career, so it's pretty much maybe the only time I've ever seen him in a straight dramatic role. So you keep waiting for him to make a joke or something, but he doesn't. But I got past that. But then, yes, Laurence Olivier's accent, the first time I heard it was ridiculous. But as the movie went on, I kind of just got into it. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that sound like that, and he picked one. I honestly think the performances were pretty good myself, except for the kid. The kid is a horrible actor. I will give you that. The reason he never acted again.
I hate kid actors. I've just
I
decided.
actually ended up very much enjoying the movie. I mean, when they got to the big twist, well, we've already talked about spoilers. When you get to the point where you realize they're cloning, and especially the fact they're cloning Hitler, I mean, I remembered like, oh yeah, I think I remember hearing that at some point. But up until then, I had completely forgotten I ever heard what the movie was really about. I thought it was just, not them hunting for these Nazis that are, hiding in Brazil. But I really liked how the movie progressed, and it kind of turned from this Nazi hunting drama into kind of a conspiracy assassination drama, and then into like a cloning thriller. And I kind of liked how the story moved along, and it kept taking these turns, which kept me interested in where it was going. And I have to disagree with Scott about the fact that he should have figured it out earlier on, because especially in the 70s, why would somebody figure out, oh, I think they're cloning people? I mean, that's not something a conclusion you would jump to in 1978 or whatever it was.
Well, maybe not the cloning aspect of it, but the fact that they're like trying to engineer this person to like be like Hitler. Like basically they're setting up all of the details from Hitler's life. You know, they're making the mother and father the same age.
In that scene, they did drag it out a little longer. Because once they realized it was a cloning thing, so let's look at the families. And I actually really liked that scene. I really liked the way they were talking about how, you know, you can clone the genetics of it, but then you have to have the same, you know, nurturing of this child, the same lifestyle. So they have to have, you know, the mother the same age, the same kind of job. The father has to die at the same age the father died. And even though it did take, I mean, obviously the audience catches on way before they do. That scene does it takes a while, that scene, before they realize it. I really like the way that scene was done. And so, I mean, in the end, I actually really enjoyed this movie quite a bit.
Yeah, I think this is just a movie that's really fun. It's a ride that you're going along, and the twists and turns. Not
the roller coaster, fun times.
Yeah, no, it's not like, you know, one of the heaviest roller coasters in the world is like Big Thunder Mountain at Disney, but it's a fun ride when you're on it.
I mean, it is, but also again, like at the end, they want you, I feel like, to have this big takeaway about like, well, look at how easy it is to like, you know, shift your attitudes and like become like Hitler, because now, you know, the people on Laurence Olivier's side are like, now we got to kill all the children or whatever, and it's like, oh, well, that's, you know, this is the gateway in right here. This is how people become like Hitler, right? And I feel like they're trying to have some sort of commentary there. But
well, I think it is, because I think it leaves a big question mark at the end. It's like, yes, there's the side of people who think they've been raised the same and the same genetics and everything. These people could turn out to be Hitler. And then there's the other side of people who are like, well, we don't know that. It's kind of like the whole Minority Report. Like, just because you think that, you know, under these conditions, this person could commit a crime, they haven't done anything yet. So we can't kill these children for something they haven't done yet. And I think that the ending is a very good job of kind of leaving that as a question mark, where, you know, we don't know which side is right. We don't see where the story goes from there. I do agree with Cody. I think it would make for a really, even from early on in the movie, I was thinking this would make for a really good remake in current day.
I would also agree that I think a remake of this would be good.
Just on the kid has blue contacts in. Is this correct?
Like, yeah.
Okay, because they look just as bad as they look in the film. I'm just making sure. I just still love the final scene. Well, before he burns the lift in the hospital, but the scene with them in the house with the three Doberman pinchers, basically, that they just lock up in the very next room, and the guy's looking the entire time at it, like he couldn't possibly open the door. Like, we're good. I just think it's hilarious because now, like, the trained dogs, and again, it has so much camp in it. But I disagree with Bar. I don't think going into this movie I expected as much camp as was in this movie. Like, when you think of the subject matter, again, when you figure out the whole plot, yeah, they're allowed. But it is totally kind of a mess for me at times. That's why I love and hate it. Like, we're cloning Hitler. We're investigating. Like, it bounces back and forth. Again, the performances are fun enough for me to not like hate. Do I think they're giving great performances? When I've seen great performances, I think you're nuts. But is it enough? Are they understanding what movie they're in the camp world that they're in? I believe so. Gregory Peck knows what movie he's in. It may not be the movie you enjoy, but he is having a damn good time being an overacting crazy person.
Well, I was looking into the movie and talking about how Laurence Olivier, this is during a period where he was getting ill and he knew he was towards the end of his life. So he was just basically taking roles to make money for his family before he died, kind of like where Bruce Willis went to straight-to-video movies. And so it's like Laurence Olivier was doing stuff like this and Clash of the Titans and things like that.
Got nominated.
Gregory Peck wanted to be a part of it because Laurence Olivier was part of it. James Mason did it because the other two guys were doing it. So they brought all these big actors into it that otherwise might not have done the movie.
Well, it was like last month's Targets, where like they needed to work Boris Karloff into one more movie, so they put him in the film. Like, yeah, it's just we have a theme.
I'm not going to belabor the point past this, but I will say again, this was the 70s when this movie came out. Every movie in the 70s was about like paranoia and like, everybody was freaking out about what was going on with the government and, the parallax view and all these, movies like that. And this is trying to be like a 70s paranoid thriller, but then again, you have all this crazy stuff going on. So that's just where the it was discordant for me.
I would almost counter that it knows exactly what it's doing, and it's almost ahead of its time making fun of that little subsect of the 70s, just a little bit, where it's like taking the popular thing to do with movies and poking just a little bit of fun at
Freeberg and Salzer's the parallax.
Whoa!
Okay.
Whoa!
I mean
Hold
more
on
so
now.
like
Conspiracy movie.
Your operation is terminated. No, your operation is terminated.
This was nominated for 3 Oscars. Whoa!
best supporting
That's
actor
crazy.
for Laurence Olivier, man. It's nuts.
Oh, 78 was a wild time, guys.
It makes too much sense. They would nominate him today too. If they nominate Mark Rylance and Bones and All, then they've done the same thing.
I will say that this cast is sneaky stacked when you look at it, because you have Olivier, Peck, and Mason, but you also have like Rosemary Harris,
Gutenberg,
Michael Gough, Steve
That
Gutenberg, Denholm Elliott. Like
who plays that child?
Which I find kind of odd.
It's Denholm Elliott CGI now.
Maybe Marcus Brody is actually the same character. He's done Hunting Nazis. He moves on with the
Yo, can you imagine if this tied into Indiana Jones?
That would make Marcus Gets Lost in his own museum even better, though.
You're weird, man. Still one of my favorite ones. Oh, it's gonna be my review. It's like Adolf Hitler. You're weird, man. Kill him. Kill him.
Yo,
and those dogs, like, what a vicious attack. What a vicious attack. Like, it is like one of the most brutal, like, looking attacks ever. Because you think, like, I think Gregory Peck's really dying in the sea because these dogs are just like, it looks vicious where it's happening. Bar, what's your star rating on this?
This movie knows what it is. It's a lot of fun. I give it 4 stars.
Okay. Brian.
This is like 4 stars as well.
Nice. I'm at 3.5. 3.5. There was stuff I liked, stuff I didn't. Koho.
I also went 3.5. Because like as much as I had fun, it's I do admit it's a touch cheesy. I like the cheese. Don't get me wrong. But I wouldn't go so far as to be like I really enjoyed it or anything. I had a good time. So 3.5.
Scott. This is gonna be like 4.5.
No, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry I watched it. It's a very interesting movie. Again, I was fully entertained, but I'm giving it 2.5 stars. I just don't think it really works.
Listen, and this is for people in the show. Like, again, as long as you like the movie and you bring it on, you're never going to get criticized for you bringing it on. Just the film just doesn't hit for people.
Unless you bring.
I brought a movie on. Yeah, poor Mark Menchaca, pour one out. Died on call. He swung in every time, but he was dying. All right, so our next movie, it's gonna be mine. It's Love and Basketball. So I picked Love and Basketball because as soon as I saw Love and Basketball was not logged by 3 people, and one of them was Brian Michaels, it was the clear and easy pick. Because every time I do the show, I let me see who I can pick one for, and then wait, Brian's seen that, of course. And anytime I see a star rating too, it makes me question things. Like, oh crap, maybe I don't want to hear it again, so I don't pick it. Yeah, Love and Basketball 2000, I think it came out. Again,
That's correct.
Basically, basically a couple that grew up next to each other their entire life. Like since they're 11, basketball is their main thing, but they end up getting into a love affair about it. I picked it basically because I think this movie's awesome. If I'm being real honest, I like the sport. I love sports movies, but I think this has actually got a really strong romance movie connected with it. And I think it tells it's basically a 3-part movie or whatever, but it tells in that story and that arc. So, yeah, I thought, and it's one that I was doing a 2000, I think the year Zach Ford gave it to me, and I was like, I've never even heard of this movie. When I watched it, right up my alley. So go around. Anybody have any initial thoughts on Love and Basketball before I gave it to you to watch?
You're muted, bro.
You're muted. Wow, that's my stick, and you're stealing it.
You want me to go first since I've seen it?
Oh no, either way.
Go ahead.
I thought
whoever
this movie was a
was-
slam dunk, personally.
He was just waiting to say that, wasn't he?
He was waiting for it.
Oh, you being muted and then unmuted and then saying it makes it even worse. Like that's just gross.
You
No,
have
but go
time to
ahead.
get out of it.
This is a movie I've been wanting to watch for a while. So first of all, thank you for making me finally watch this, Cody. No, I loved this movie. I thought the relationship between these two characters was incredibly natural. Like the progression, nothing felt forced, nothing felt stilted, nothing felt like it was being shoehorned in. The progression of this was completely natural feeling, and that's what I love about a good romance film. That's why I love things like When Harry Met Sally, because it just feels so natural and honest where it's going, how it went, and all these things. I think this is a great romance.
I had never seen it. I'm gonna say something that frustrates the hell out of Cody, and I don't mean to. I mean it with the utmost compliment that this is. This shares a lot of DNA with my favorite movie of all time, La La Land. There's some shared DNA between that relationship where it's two people who are very ambitious and dedicate themselves to a thing, and it gets in the way of their own romance. I think that piece of DNA is really powerful and done really well here. Gina Prince Bythewood didn't realize this was her first movie because it's phenomenally directed. It's really well done. I loved The Woman King, so now after seeing this, I'm like, I'm going down a rabbit hole. I'm watching the rest of them because I loved this. I think the structure on it is super, super cool of 4 different like moments of their lives through the 4 quarters, which I kind of loved. I think this cast is nuts. Like Dennis Haysbert is so good as the dad. And both actresses who play the moms, it's Alfre Woodard and I can't remember the other one. Off the top of my head, they're both great. Both actresses who play both the moms are really powerful. It also makes me wonder why Omar Epps didn't like get bigger.
Yo, right?
Like, because he's
Both of
so
them.
good. Yeah, both. Yes, both of them. But like, I could pull Omar Epps from Days of Future Past for like the one-off knowing that person.
No, from
And
House.
he's great in this, and it's kind of weird that he like didn't get bigger. Any of them really. The smaller names got any bigger. But I love the script. I loved everything about it. Absolutely worked for me.
So I had never seen this movie, as Cody said. It's one that I've had people recommend to me. I had one girl I worked with a long time ago said it was like her favorite movie of all time. I just never watched it. I think for me, when it comes to sports movies, I tend to like enjoy like sports comedies, things like that. I don't get into even like the inspirational sports movies. I watch them and I enjoy them, but I don't really seek them out. And especially when you get like schmaltzy, romantic sports movies, it's not generally my thing.
But you're not a Just Right fan?
No, I'm more of a Tin Cup fan.
Okay.
If you're gonna have some romance, it's got to have a little bit more comedy to it. But I mean, that's just, again, that's not a criticism of the film. That's just my tastes. So I had never watched this movie. I didn't realize till after I watched it and was looking into it that it is the director of Woman King, Old Guard, even Beyond the Lights. These are all movies I like. So, I mean, I really like this director. This movie, however, it was fine. Again, it's just not my thing. But I didn't love it, didn't hate it. There were things about it I enjoyed. I think the performances were, for the most part, pretty good. I think that some of the dialogue is cringy as hell. I mean, the whole thing about, at the last game was like, what are you going to play for? Your heart. I'm like, oh my God. I let out an audible groan and I rolled my eyes. My wife in the other room was like, what are you watching? Because you heard me like, oh. They were playing for your heart. Things like that. It's funny that Andrew mentioned When Harry Met Sally, because I read that the director, made this because she wanted to make a black When Harry Met Sally. This movie doesn't come close to When Harry Met Sally. It's like, it doesn't even compare in any way, shape, or form. But I mean,
kick me also, okay?
Yeah, right. I mean, for what it is, it's okay. I am amused that the title drop comes during a crotch grab in a basketball game. Grabs his crotch, and then no, all's fair in love and basketball. I'm like, interesting place to drop the title for a romance, but okay.
It was an interesting title drop.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I didn't mind it. Didn't love it. Didn't hate it. Yeah, I'd say if I was going to compliment one thing about it, would be the performance. Dennis Haysbert was good. Alfre Woodard is like in the Mom Hall of Fame. She plays a mom and everything from Scrooge to Heart and Souls to the MCU to this. And yeah, it was all right.
I knew that's how you were going to feel, so I don't feel too bad about it. I had that feeling going into it. Scott, you saw it before, so what was your take?
Well, I'm glad I went after Brian because I was gonna say I don't know how you do not enjoy this movie, but Brian proved me wrong, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I just think this is such like a satisfying, well executed movie. Like, it doesn't matter if you like romance movies, it doesn't matter if you like basketball. I would recommend this movie to anyone from like the most pretentious film bro on film Twitter to like my younger brother who just doesn't watch movies. Like, I would recommend this movie to anyone. Like, I feel like anyone can enjoy this genuinely. It's just so well made, like, you know, just a genuine crowd pleaser. I love like the look at like kind of like what Koho was saying. The fact that you have these like really two type A personalities who are like, you know, so competitive about basketball. But now they find themselves in a situation like in a relationship with each other where like they have to like rearrange their priorities sometimes and like they don't really know exactly how to handle that situation because basketball has always been like the be all and end all for them. But I like how the movie ends up being about how like, you know, the people around you are kind of what make you enjoy the passions that you enjoy. Like, again, Monica doesn't enjoy basketball when she goes to whatever country, Spain, that she's playing in, because she's not with Quincy. And I think that's a, you know, great way to circle back around and you know, sort of cement what the movie is about. I think their chemistry is amazing. They're both like beautiful people to look at. Like, the soundtrack is great. It's just a knockout of a movie, in my opinion. Like, again, I would recommend this to anyone. The only scene which I don't like is when it's just me being a anal sports person, but when Monica is playing at USC and she has that game where she takes the charge at the end, right? There's like 20 seconds left in the game and her team is winning. And they're just like passing the ball around. The other team is not fouling. Like, the shot clock is off, right? They are not fouling. And then for some reason, Monica tries to like force the pass down low. I mean, her team had gone to the four corners offense. Like, all she needed to do was just like throw it to the person next to her. If the other team was just not going to foul, they could have just run out the clock. But instead, she makes like this risky pass. And then, so just, you know, basketball logic stuff. But other than that, phenomenal.
I was gonna say, as far as you're saying that the only thing didn't work, I think this is another movie that didn't need to be over 2 hours, because throughout a good chunk of the movie, they're always going over this thing out. They're never successful at the same time. Like, whenever one person's up, the other person's down, and back and forth and back and forth. And after a while, like, okay, we get it. Can we just move on to the next stage of the story?
But it's trying to like
basketball. Weird.
Be about a whole span of their lives. Like, you know, it's spanning a lot of time.
I'm gonna like wholly disagree with one's always up and one's always down. That first opening, they are both kids and they are neutral on the same level. So no,
okay, the very beginning, but as the movie went, though.
But
fair enough. Also, you said 2 hours, and I was like, that was 2 hours, because to me that went
I know, right?
Fast.
Did not feel like 2 hours.
You said 2 hours,
so
it's not 2 hours, it's 90 minutes.
I think the thing that works really well is because they don't expand the scope that far, which works really well in this movie, which is smart, because they like center around the two families and that's it. Like, they don't go beyond and add like their best friend Donnie that tagged along with. Like, they don't do any of that. They just treated the two characters. And you have this thing. Right, and you have this dynamic. I think the things that don't work for me is, one, I do think the ending is very cheesy. I do. It's the one thing that draws me out of the movie at the end, because at the end of the day, you're 2 weeks away from your thing. I don't care what the end of the day is. You're talking about thing. He just had his ACL repaired, and you're going to play one-on-one. Apparently, you don't love Tyra Banks that much, or whoever it is. I don't know. Like, you don't love her that much. You're not going to be able to even keep up with her.
That's the point. He doesn't love her.
I know, but you don't have to play and risk re-injury. You can just say, you're right, let's just go back in the house. The other thing is, I am also the sports person. I have the problem, like, he's losing that one game. He's coming up, and there's 20 seconds left in the shot clock, and he just shoots up a 3. I'm like, I would bench you for the rest of your game. You have no point.
How about when Monica is in practice and she steals the ball or whatever, and she has a breakaway to the basket, and she stops and shoots a 3 from the top of the key? That's when she ends up, like, watching her shot, and the coach is like, oh, you like the pose?
And she has to hold her hand the entire time.
I was like, you're shooting a 3 from that? So, I mean, again, these are minor things.
But I think, like, I actually really enjoy, like, the son dynamic of it when Omar Epps and, like, his, like, realization and the dad coming to him and like, instilling all these things to him, like, I want you to go to a good school, I want you to do this. And, like, he doesn't say it, but he's like, I basically want you to stay with my mom. Like, you got to know it. And, like, when he puts the thing in reality, it's like, you're going to go to the NBA, and let me tell you, there's 20 people waiting in the lobby for you. Or there's 100 girls throwing themselves at you. 20 of them are brave enough and got on the same floor, but one shows up at your door, and you deny that every night. And I'm like, wow. Like, when you put that out, and then he's like, all he wants is a good education because he knows the life of the NBA is not, like, there for him, and he goes, you're a better ball player than me. I just want you to get a good education. He goes, I'm dropping out. I'm going to the draft. And you're just like, wow. Like, it just keeps going. Like, he shows up. I just love the acting on both of the main people's parts because when they're hurting in a certain aspect or there's something's going wrong, you feel it across both sides. I felt it. Please, I know Brian wasn't the same one, but I was like, I think both of these, and looking at their careers, how they didn't just, like, shoot. For me, a little surprising because they had such great performances in this movie. For me, I really enjoyed it.
I will say, while I thought that the line about, playing for my heart, that was completely cheesy. I thought it was, yeah.
I groaned with you, to be honest.
But I will say, though, that I like that it didn't go, traditional route where, she wins or anything. It went that he won, and then there's that moment where you think it's over, and then he says double or nothing. I did
it's
actually.
It's such a, like.
That's a great send off because as much as I'll play for your heart, and then she knows she lost, and he's like cocky in her face, and he's like double or nothing.
I also
and
feel the movie should have ended then, though.
She turns around.
The Coda scene.
When her face turns around, you're just like, dude, like this movie's just. And like when she comes home after she finds like she comes back home, and she like starts going at her mom. And I think that's a bomb scene too because the mom puts her right in her like, listen, like basically like don't even come at me on this topic. Like, I think it was just. Again, I think it's just performances throughout that are so because you also get that scene between the mom and the dad of like be home with us for a second, and she's like, "Oh, don't worry, you'll stay in your Gucci's or whatever." And like she starts taking off her stuff and throwing at him. Will that buy me a weekend? Will that buy me your time? And it's just like such a in your face like story. I love it.
The Dennis Haysbert moment that like gut punched me the most is when he's like, I can't let you throw your life away. He's like, I thought can't wasn't in a man's vocabulary. Gut punch. Brilliant. And then like when it comes back around and he like comes back to him in the hospital room and he just is like, you could have been anything you wanted to. So you're already better than me. So you don't have to do this if you don't want to. It's so good. Dennis Haysbert, like the fact that this man was like not even considered for this movie, upsetting that no one was, because I like we said, the performances are so good and there's so many moments in it that just like crushed me. I thought great writing.
Well, I'm glad to see that Haysbert and his son there were able to make up and join the Cleveland Indians together later on. So.
Right. I did think the part where like when he's going through all the stuff and she's busy and doing all the stuff and he's like, hey, you want to go to Burger King with us? You want to go get some food with us? And like her face and like when they come back, it's like, are you gonna every time that I'm not available, you're just gonna run off? And he's like, I can't make that promise to you. Like I can't be emotionally connected to you. I'm like, when he shut. You're right, and he shut people out for and I was like, and again, she goes across and comes back, And I think that realization inside the hospital too is where it's just like, hey, like, fiance? Oh, congrats! Like, 'cause she doesn't know what to say with
Her
that. She's like, I
reaction to
loved you.
that, like, that's, like, great acting when her whole, like, trying to pretend to be happy, but also, like, process the shock and sadness and everything. Like, that's a great moment for
She's like, I've loved you since we were 11 years old. Like, it was such a, it's a, and he said, you still
and
think
you
the sun
feel it
rises
because
on your ass. Yeah.
you've seen it, like, from when they were 11, you're like, "Yeah, she has." Like, she totally has. Like, you can totally see it.
Yeah, and he's been clueless most of the time. So I thought it was really great. I'm glad at least four of the me and the three other people enjoyed it. I knew where Brian was going to sit before I picked it, just because I've talked to Brian about certain movies like in this realm, and Barr had to bring up When Harry Met Sally, so that was just already shooting itself in the foot. You don't do that when people are. But what's everybody's rating on it? I'm 4.5. Those little moments are just off for me, just a little. And the Pac-12 must have fucking sucked back then because he was throwing up dunks like left and right. I was like, that division was garbage.
Guess
in
what? It
2000.
still sucks in basketball.
It's so yeah, right. We'll go Scott. You saw him before.
It's almost 5 stars. Like, I really did think about giving it 5 stars, but it's 4.5, mainly because Dick Vitale is in it. That's what holds it back from being 5 stars.
Marry Dick Vitale then. Oh.
It's
I love basketball
so
so much. Go get with Dick Vitale. I thought
Again,
that was
I
great.
recommend this
Good
movie
line.
to anyone watching this, whether you like love, whether you like basketball, whether you
like
are
Anne.
someone watching from India who was just hoping to see if we talk about another Tollywood or Bollywood movie. I recommend this movie.
We should just put one of
the.
we should put one of those movies in the title just
Yeah.
to say it, and then we're gonna.
No, what you do is you just capitalize R 3 times randomly in the title and just.
The boys from Brazil.
Brian, your rating.
For me, it was my enjoyment. It was not great, not bad. Just dead center in the middle, so 3 stars.
Take it. Koho.
5 stars. This is instant top 100 material. I will be coming back to this a lot. I loved it a lot. So
Koho just turned the spot back on it. Gave him a movie. Gave him 5 stars. That's perfect. Better, more than me. Bart.
Very strong 4.5 stars. This could make my
Not
top
4.25.
4.75.
Oh,
This
I
could
hate
very
4.2.
potentially make my top 100 on rewatch.
I don't know which one I hate more, that or when Jack used to do the 9.7s on the 5 stars. I want that to come back so bad. It was my favorite thing. All right. Right before we talk about the heart of the hall, it's time to talk about Eurovision.
Movies we're getting here.
The 2 sides of Netflix movies. Play Yaya. Okay, go ahead.
I went to my letterbox. I went highest rated first, and I looked for the first one that none of you had seen, and the answer was Eurovision. So I wanted to transport you back to what it was like in the summer of 2020 when all we had was Netflix movies, and this gem of utter joy and positivity showed up on my feed. I totally understand that this movie is not for you, but I totally buy it. I love the crazy, ridiculous vibe of the Eurovision Song Contest, and I love how Will Ferrell in the movie captures it and like how obsessed these people are with putting on these insane performances. I think all the music is really good. Like all of it is super fun. The song along, which is basically just a riff off, but they can't do a riff off because it's not Pitch Perfect, is so fun. Dan Stevens and Rachel McAdams are my favorite performances in this movie. I think those two are killing it. Dan Stevens as the super flamboyant Russian man, just chest out, open jacket, singing the dumbest songs about being a lion lover are so good. And Rachel McAdams is just so genuine in this movie. I think she's so funny. And I totally understand. Will Ferrell is a very hit or miss actor for a lot of people. He hits more often for me than he misses. Even right now, I mean, he just made another movie this year that hit for me that I didn't expect. So I enjoy Will Ferrell in musicals or music-related movies, apparently. I think Eurovision should have won its Oscar that year for the song. It should have won because the Husavik song is so pretty. I also really love Double Trouble. Like their actual submission song is just super ridiculous fun, and,
Even the
and watching
sixth
them
time
all
they
fall
played
apart.
it.
Oh, every time, Double Trouble just rules. And Yaya Ding Dong is just like the most fun dick joke in a movie they've ever made. It's great. I love all the like Norwegian, Icelandic actors that they put in it. I love all the Eurovision contestants that they put in it and just peppered throughout as cameos. It's just like a shot of pure joy in a cup, and it's so fun. It's just full sugar. So I totally get it if you still like it. But I wanted to make something populist and not elite.
So I'm going to
So
recommend me because Cole talks about how Will Ferrell's very hit and miss for a lot of people, and I'm one of those people. There are movies of his that I love. You should all watch Spirited. Love that movie.
It was good, right?
Right. I'm just saying.
It was good.
And then there's other films that I really don't like of his. This movie is everything I expected it to be, which was not good. It's this is one of those movies where Will Ferrell spends the majority of his time, and even within any scene, just kind of you can tell he's just like ad-libbing and dragging out scenes. And I don't really like when he gets into that kind of thing where it's just like he's going off on his shtick, and you can tell the other people are just kind of trying to react to it and keep up with him. It doesn't really work for me. I think all the songs in this movie are horrible. I don't understand why the audiences are cheering for these songs, because they're all pretty ridiculous. I almost would think they're trying to be ridiculous, but they're
That's
not.
Eurovision.
I never heard of Eurovision before this, but
man, you gotta watch things like you gotta watch ABBA's.
Judging by this, there's not a chance in hell I'm watching Eurovision.
That's where ABBA came from.
But and then like the song at the end, the one song that actually sounds decent at My Hometown at the end there. The problem is that song sounds exactly like Never Enough from Greatest Showman, to the point where I actually started like Googled it to see if anybody else felt the same way. And there's people who have done mashups of them together because it's like the same song practically in the sound of it. So I mean, it's a decent song, but it still sounded like kind of a knockoff.
I have no idea.
I don't know. I agree. I like Dan Stevens a lot. I wish he still hasn't broken out. I did enjoy him in this, although everybody's kind of doing the silly accents and things, which I understand is part of the joke, but it didn't really work for me. I like seeing Rachel McAdams. She doesn't do a lot, it seems like, much anymore, and when she does, she doesn't tend to do fun stuff. She shows up in a lot of like serious dramas and things. So I do enjoy seeing her. I will agree that she was one of the other good things about this movie. Yeah, the story for the most part, I just really didn't care about these people. I didn't want them to win anything. There are far better movies featuring Pierce Brosnan and ABBA, in the Mamma Mia movies. Better than this. Yeah, I'll let you guys talk. Come back to me later.
Eurovision's better than both Mamma Mia's. Spence coming.
So, I will say, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. As a defender of, and again, people will see eye rolls. I like The Greatest Showman. I don't like the story from The Greatest Showman. I like the music and everything about The Greatest Showman. I love the music from The Greatest Showman. But when this song was playing, that song, I was just like, man, dude, this song fucking rocks. And I was like, holy shit, this sounds like Never Enough. And I was like, I like Never Enough, so maybe that's why I like the song. So I am a Will Ferrell middle 2000s defender to the end of the universe. I think he, at that range, Anchorman, Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, funniest human being that's ever been in film for me. I love it. It was past that point where he decided to stop being funny and doing whatever he's doing now. This movie was the wildest roller coaster I have ever been on in my life. The first 20 minutes, I thought, I'm going to fake this on the show, do my damnedest to let everybody else talk about it, and I'm not finishing this piece of shit. And then I watched it, and I end up like smiling at some parts, laughing at some parts,
Hear that?
hating my fucking life again, laughing. It was like I felt insane at some point of this movie. There are so many things that I like that I could talk about for a while from this movie.
I need to hear all of it.
But holy shit, this movie should not have been made. I don't understand it. I just don't get it. I just think and look at all this acting and all this like group, and I'm like, how did you get here? What coke line dream did all you guys get on a train and be able to send do
Because
this?
it's Netflix. It's freaking Netflix. Will Ferrell shows up and is like, "Hey, I want to make a movie. Take my money." Like that's literally the Netflix way.
I have to ask,
We're not going to check on the movie. We're not going to ask you to edit it. Just make whatever the hell that you want. Like, that's
did you like or not like the Americans joke, and when it came back?
Oh, at the end?
With the tourists. Like where the first time you saw it, it's like, oh, where's the Starbucks? And then the second time they do the car.
The car was like funny but over. Like it was what Brian explained. It's long. It's drawn out. He just keeps it, and I get it. Everybody thinks that Will Ferrell has this ability that he can just riff for days, and he probably does. Like, if you went to like a cocktail party with Will Ferrell, he'd probably make your stomach hurt by the end of the show because he'd be making you laugh by different things that would pop up. But they put a camera in front of him and they say, just be you, and he just keeps doing it, and they just keep the fucker rolling, and then they hit cut, print, and then they put it in the movie. And I'm like, no, there's edits that need to be made at this point because some of this shit just doesn't work. Like, that was my only take. The Yaya Ding Dong grew on me. Like, hated it at the beginning, and when he shows up at the end and screams it again, I'm in tears. Like, it's funny at that point. I think Rachel McAdams and Dan Stevens knows exactly what movie they're both in, but Will Ferrell feels like the captain of the ship, and he's got as much direction as Jack Sparrow. He doesn't know where the fuck to drive this thing. It is completely all over the place. The two people that haven't talked, I was just, what did you love Yaya Ding Dong? Are you guys ready to download the soundtrack? Are you guys in love with this movie, or are you with me and Brian?
I mean, I didn't like the movie. That's not going to be a surprise to anyone, probably. But
shocked. There wasn't
I was never interested in this.
Scenes.
Yeah, well, if you want to talk about a movie that was too long, no movie like this should be longer than 95 minutes. Like, sorry, that just should not. And again, this is the freaking Netflix. They're going to just let you make whatever you want, which is a good thing when they're giving the money to people like Alfonso Cuarón or James Samuel, and is a bad thing when they're giving money to David Dobkin, whoever the hell else. But this movie, I was not interested in it when it came out. But, my good friend, one Zachary Ford, is a huge fan of this movie. And so I was curious about it because I thought, I do enjoy some of these like very sincere, like music-based / musical movies. Like, again, Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. I absolutely love. Like, I thought, if this is anything like that, then there's potential here. But the music is the only interesting part of it. Like when people are performing, songs, I was like interested enough to like keep watching. Everything else is just a bunch of BS. Like, yeah, it's not funny. Will Ferrell is completely phoning it in this movie. Like, it reminds me of some of like Adam Sandler's late period movies where he's just like calling up his friends and like, hey, let's hang out for 2 hours in Europe in this occasion, and we'll have somebody just stand and hold the camera, and that's a lot of what his movies are. It feels like he's just cashing a check, and I don't hate Will Ferrell. I like some of his comedies for sure. As much as again, this style of comedy just doesn't appeal to me in general, but I do like some of his movies. So it just there's not really much else to say about a movie like this for me. Like, if it's not funny to me, then it's not going to get very far. And it wasn't funny. I love Rachel McAdams. I love that she will do anything. Like, literally, she will do this and do like a crazy accent, and then she will go do like Spotlight. Right? She will make like this Oscar, Best Picture winning film. She is down for anything, and I think we need more performers who are like that. So, good for her. This movie stunk otherwise for me.
Yeah, Ding Dong.
I love that guy so much.
I'm.
He's literally the kid from Shrek the Third that says, "Do the roar."
He is. He's
That
the
grew up,
worst.
grew up and
It's-
moved to Iceland. And that's it.
It's my genuinely
yeah,
my
TikTok.
favorite joke, real quick, in the movie is when he comes out and he goes, "I only watch Twohig on TikTok. It's the only thing that makes me happy." It's like the best joke. I love it so much.
That is the only thing that makes him happy. So I'm conflicted. So I'm gonna get out the things that I don't like first. There are too many things happening in this movie. The whole plot point about Katiana as a ghost, completely
Love it.
pointless.
Love
Nothing. Means nothing to the overall story.
Yeah, she showed back up once for no reason. Like, what was that?
Oh, listen, Demi Lovato is the GOAT, and we do not disrespect Demi Lovato.
I love Demi Lovato. Don't get me wrong. Like, but her plot point was like nothing. It
Makes
meant
no sense.
nothing. Then there was the whole plot point with like the evil like businessman guy. Like, didn't need to be in the movie.
But
Well,
Um,
also,
but
if
it's
you think
realistic.
about it,
I
he
love
died
that.
for no reason because at the end they didn't want to win the contest anyway. So he died basically.
Which
he just
is
wanted to
even-
keep the
That's
winning the
even
contest.
funnier. That's even funnier that he dies for no reason.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead. Ed,
Sorry.
sorry.
No, it's fine. This is a group show. The whole bit with the elves was a little unnecessary. And there were. I see you, Cody. And I'm not gonna lie. At one point, I paused the movie and I was like, "How far into this movie am I? I'm only 15 minutes into this thing." So yeah. So I thought parts of it didn't work because it was just cluttered, too long, just drawn out. Let me talk about the positives now. I love the song along. I thought that was a great scene. I loved that scene. I would rewatch that over and over again. Rachel McAdams is a queen. I love her so much. She's doing the greatest Bjork impersonation I've ever seen. But there's just like so much heart and like earnestness behind her character. She's just like so good in this movie. And I also like the soundtrack to The Greatest Showman. I think Crucifix a better song than Never Enough, to be completely honest.
Maybe if it existed first, I might say that.
What's that?
Maybe if it existed first, I would say that. But as it is, it just feels like a knockoff.
I don't know. I just think that there's something about that song that I kind of like better. So the music in this movie, I think, is really strong. And considering the fact that it's a music movie, I think is very beneficial to it.
I think it's also funny that they're both the songs are performed by somebody else other than the person singing them in the movie.
Yeah.
The obvious lip sync really took me out of it.
I think it
Also-
is the same. I'm not certain. I'd have to check, but it might be.
I also want to shout out, and I had to write her name down. Melisanthe Mount.
Oh, she's so good, dog.
She's the singer from Grease.
Yeah.
She's really good in this movie. I really liked her whenever she popped up on screen because, like, I thought that she was nailing it with as little time as she had.
Overall, I think there are things that you can like about the film. Overall, if it's the music, sure. If it's the thing, I just think like you give this movie just suffers from way too much freedom at the end of the day, and it's just a concept that just doesn't make sense. Like there was no reason to go to the elves staying at the thing. Like that's just over tack on just stupid stuff that they're just going to do.
If it was the one scene, the elves would work better.
Also,
I think me and Brian were
kill him instantly. Just explain that.
I think me and Brian were on a call I think me and Brian were on a call recent, and I was like, "Did you watch Eurovision yet?" And he's like, "No, not yet." I'm like, "Oh, like I'm dreading this entire thing," and like, it's just like, it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. Like at the end of the day, it did not surprise me. It let me down in the same ways it was going to let me down. It was going to make me laugh the same ways it was going to make me laugh. I think the saving grace, honestly, the two saving graces from this film is Dan Stevens and Rachel McAdams for me. I think they were the two people that just they were almost they were like the life vest at sea. Like something I could grab onto and I know I'm not dying alone on this thing. Like they were able to bring me out of the ridiculous of Will Ferrell at times, and I was around there. So overall, go ahead.
I just last two things I'll bring up, and then I'll let us move on from Eurovision. I maybe it's just because I really like Graham Norton, but I really love Graham Norton as the commentator for Eurovision. I love him.
Yeah,
I think he's just a really funny human being. So like to put him in the
Graham Norton is hilarious. Yeah,
he's so good. I love the scarf. It's so good. And then when this is the smallest thing, and I picked up on it again this time when they're picking the Fire Saga. For some reason, the whole of the guy picking it up, having it, and just it says, and his face cracks me up. I do not understand why or how. It's the smallest little moment, and it's the tone of the movie, like kind of just summed up in one throwaway visual gag.
What I love about that visual gag is that if you look at the box, it's almost all CDs, but when he pulls it out, it's a cassette.
The cassette. I love it.
It's also the guy from Iceland after the wheel thing goes, sorry about tonight. We'll send somebody else next year. It's just like he just admits, sorry about tonight. We'll send anybody else.
We'll have someone next year. Don't worry.
Well, that's why I also liked how I was like watching this. I'm like, how are they going to make it so that these people win the contest? Because there's no way I believe they're going to win. And so when they did that explosion on the boat, I actually really enjoyed that moment. That was fun. Like, everybody else is dead except for you, so I guess you're our nominees. So
their reaction is so good in that moment too.
Yeah, and I'm very much in the same boat as Cody. There's things about the movie I enjoyed. I didn't feel like I was suffering through the entire movie. I will say that, like Andrew, in the first 50 minutes, I was like watching it, and like I hear the first song, I'm like, oh my god, 2 more hours of this. And then towards the end, I feel like it's building to an end, and I look at the time, there's still 45 minutes left. So it did, I won't say I really enjoyed it that much, but there are things about the movie that I did enjoy. I also did like that, speaking of Dan Stevens, they didn't make him like a typical villain. I mean, he's the competition, and I very much thought they were going that way, like he was going to sabotage them or something like that, or try and.
I thought he was associated with the other, like the Icelandic businessman.
But he really didn't. He just turned out to be just the competition. He was never like that mustache twirling villain. So I did like that they didn't go that way with him. So.
I do like the part where it's like, he's like, I will give her everything that she could possibly want, and she's like, well, not everything. And he's like, because she asked about the end, like, are you gay? And he's like, no, not at all. I'm Russian. I'm Russian.
There are
no gay people in Russia.
You've seen the statues. Come on.
And then he's like, that doesn't make it. That cannot be true. That can't be true. Like she's like that.
Him pronoun. I love it. He's so good.
Dan Stevens great. Koho, what's your rating on this movie?
I'm an absurdly high 4.5. I love this movie. I totally acknowledge there's so many things about this movie that are fucking dumb and ridiculous and don't make sense. But for whatever reason, maybe you could call it when the movie came out and when I saw it, I just latched on and I love it. Like if you want more thoughts, the Lucas and Zach podcast episode's like 3.5 hours long. We go in on this movie.
I wonder how
we'll always come back to it.
I wonder how, like, when Nope came out and, like, the most popular review for Nope was Yep. Like, everybody kept doing that for the movie Nope. Mm-hmm. I'm curious of what, like, how many feature Ya Ya Ding Dong in the review for Eurovision, because I think it's going to be
never
on
look
high
at the most popular reviews of movies on Letterboxd. It's the most depressing thing.
Yep. I still haven't seen Nope, but I just want to do that just to piss everybody off. Bar.
Okay.
What's your rating?
So I think this is a good movie. But I can't give it higher than 3.
Okay.
I mean, you could. 2 stars. Nothing else to say.
Brian.
I toyed with a 2.5, but ultimately I got to go with 2.
I am a 2.5. I'm a 2.5. I do like the last song. Even if it is never, I still enjoyed it. I was like, this is a different tone change that I definitely like. In the next one, probably the one that I will probably spend the most time on, but it's The Harder They Fall. Brian, take it away.
Yeah, so I tend to normally pick movies that people aren't as familiar with, a lot of 80s, 90s, things like that. This time I went with one, like I said, it's one that everybody here had seen. Everyone here liked, as far as I know. Uh, but I think that I would like to hear more discussion about this movie because it seems like nobody really talks about this movie. I brought it up, and somebody else I think did as well, just briefly on I think it was Logged It, where it's been talked about a little bit. But I'd like to have a much bigger discussion about it. That being, of course, James Samuel's "The Harder They Fall." This is a movie that is the feature film debut of a guy who's basically a musician. It's actually Seal's younger brother, James Samuel. He wrote, directed, produced along with Jay-Z. He composed. He did some of the songs in this movie. And so you'd think it's going to be basically, a first-time effort, or it's going to be, essentially a music video kind of thing, judging from the kind of person that's making it. But it's not. This turned out to be, I think, the best Western I have seen in a long, long time. Um, I think this director has such a kind of unique style to him. I mean, there are things about it that even I've compared to Tarantino in terms of some of the dialogue, in terms of some of the anachronistic music, things like that. So there are definitely comparisons to maybe something like Tarantino, but I think that his is a style all its own. I think it's new, it's fresh. I love it. I can't wait to see everything he does in the future. The cast he assembled here is just amazing from top to bottom. I mean, you've got Jonathan Majors, who people knew a little bit about who he was then, but just now seeing who he's becoming with upcoming with Creed and Ant-Man and the Wasp and everything else he's doing. Devotion is out now. He's having a hell of a breakout now, and he does a phenomenal job in this. Idris Elba, Regina King, Zazie Beetz, Delroy Lindo, Lakeith Stanfield, RJ Seiler I thought was really good in this, and
Danielle
then some newcomers
Deadwyler.
that I hadn't really heard of, like Danielle Deadwyler and was it Eddie Gathigi. I'm butchering that name, I'm sure. All the way down to cameos from everyone from Damon Wayans Jr. to DeWanda Wise from Jurassic Park Dominion plays his mom, to Donald Cowboy Cerrone, the UFC fighter. He appears in the scene in this. It's got everybody's in this movie. But I think everybody does a great job, top to bottom. I think it looks beautiful. I love the way this movie is filmed. It's gorgeous. Especially there's one scene when they say they're going to this town. They say, "Oh, it's a white town," and you think they just mean like white people. They go, "It's an actual white town." And I just think this. I think that looks beautiful the way that thing was designed and built. The cast is especially amazing because they lost out on more people that were going to be in it because of COVID. They lost out on Cynthia Erivo was going to be in it. Sterling K. Brown was going to be in it. Wesley Snipes was going to be in it at one point too.
Oh wow!
So I'm curious to see. But of course, they left the ending open for a sequel, so who knows if we'll ever see that. Yeah, no, this is just a movie that I think that is a great film that people write off as a Netflix movie. So a lot of people I think haven't even seen it. I know everybody here has. But I think you guys can attest that more people should see it because it's beautiful. I wish I had seen this in the big screen. It would have looked amazing on the big screen. Yeah, what'd you think?
Okay, yeah, I just have to say,
Yeah.
since it was brought up, again, screw Netflix. All my homies hate Netflix. Why did they not put this movie in freaking theaters? Even for like a week. Do the same, BS that they're doing with Glass Onion or that they're doing with White Noise right now. Like, just give us a week. This movie would have been incredible on the big screen. That is the only thing that depresses me about when I watch it is the fact that something this like stylish, this great to look at, and with this insane cast, they didn't even give it a chance. So that's sad. But otherwise, I think this is an example of Netflix and their lack of creative control being a good thing because James Samuel is allowed to, do what he wants, to do all of this sort of stylish stuff again, just for the hell of it. And that's what I really enjoy is it adding any depth or layers to the movie when they do like a split screen shot of like four different people at the same time? No. Is it super cool? Yeah. And that is sometimes all you need and all you want from a movie like this. And this movie is just 2 hours and 10 minutes of being super cool. And I think that is okay, especially because I really appreciate what it is doing in terms of reframing the Western with these black characters. Nope, I think we brought up Nope, but that, is another example of a movie that's kind of trying to take some of the classic iconography of Westerns and everything, and, that is so intimately associated with white people, and, transform that. I mean, like that shot in Nope of him on the horse there at the end is like, the classic, like we're taking, the image that you've seen a billion times with a white dude, and now we're putting a black dude in there. And just by doing that, it like revolutionizes the genre in a way. It takes the genre back. So I think that is so important what he's doing. And the fact that, the movie starts out and it's like, oh, well, this didn't actually happen, but these people were real.
These people existed.
And that is cool, right? Because again, you've seen so many Westerns about like, these dudes like Billy the Kid and all these people, and half the stories are just, made up, but they're, the made up stories about these white Western legends. And so now it's like, hey, we're going to make that, except we're going to put all black people in. And it, it's not really drawing attention to the fact that it's, we're flipping it to be, all African American characters. But simply by giving us a classic genre Western with these, African American characters and actors, it is doing something important, I think, in terms of reframing the way that we look at these movies. So I think it's just a cool movie on every level.
That's what I was going to say, is because I think the main thing to take away from this is the reframe of the Western genre. I think overall, Westerns for a time is kind of dead. Like, we have a few pop up every once in a while, and yeah, they're not as popular as, of course, they once were. But like, how do you retell the story? I think this is the exact way that you retell a Western story. I think this is the exact way you do it, and I think you tell it with such a we think about it in the aspect of like the Avengers or like a superhero. When you see like, or even like Glass Onion or something like that, when you see like a cast list of boom, 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 and you're like, shit, how's this going to work? This is exactly how, like, a who's who of actors put into a movie, and like them all working, because this is like a dream scenario. All of these people in the movie, it just works out so well. The thing I love about this movie, and I love this movie on rewatch, I did not talk about or like gush about this movie as much, and I guess it's because I was just trying to cram as many movies in at the end of the time when I was watching them all. This movie is so powerful. One, the music is amazing. I will just get that out of the way. The music basically carries me from scene to scene, so love that part of it. Two, the stuff that they're able to do with the sound and how they shoot the movie to create the most intimidating people possible. Regina King and Idris Elba are created as such of these two forces before they even do anything as of the scene. Like, you see her parked on the thing, you hear the score, you see the stuff, and like how ruthless she truly is, how ruthless he really is. There's that scene where he's sitting in the mayor is like sitting there and talking, like having this conversation, like you're a relic of the past and blah, blah, blah. And they cut away and see that no one's sitting there because he is that scary that you have to have a pep up talk before you go and talk to this person. And then the brutal beating that he goes through. I think that one of the biggest standouts in this movie is, I think, Lakeith Stanfield.
Yeah.
Lakeith Stanfield is fucking doing work in this movie. Him and the young, and this is a complete spoiler, so if you haven't seen this movie, do not stop watching, go watch and come back and listen to us talk about it. But when they're talking about the duel, and like the first time that he sits up, he goes, out here, you'll shoot him twice in the back before they do anything. And he's like, good night. And he walks away. Wait, that's not it. It's not.
That's how it's supposed to end. You get back here. So good.
I've been playing this entire time. And he's like, you count. And then when it finally happens, it's the one part of the movie that my mouth completely dropped over to me. I completely forgot about it, but he's like,
it counts so slow.
5, talking. And you see that shot, he's like, I hate it. Why do they got to count so slow? And I'm just like, that is such a fucking badass line of a person that doesn't play by the rules. Like, these are outlaws at this point. They don't play it. But I jumped ahead. I jumped really far ahead. This movie fucking opens fucking incredible. This movie paints everything that you want. One of the most, like, if you have children, one of the most brutal openings ever. Like, if you think about it, like, to watch your mother and father get blown away, and then you get a cross, like, carved into your forehead as a like he knew, like, when you show up later in life, he can recognize you. Like, that's nuts to me. Like, it is just brilliant where they're able to go. I've gushed a little bit. I have way more to talk about, but I'll let everybody else go ahead.
I love this movie. It's still one of my favorites from last year. I still am frustrated that the Guns Go Bang song didn't get nominated. That was like one that was getting nominated throughout the precursors. And
so good.
But we nominated that dumbass Diane Warren song from the Hulu movie with Mila Kunis. Like, why'd we do that? That Guns Go Bang song rips.
Because it moves
Diane
people.
Warren, you answered your own question.
You're right, it's Diane Warren.
True.
I'm a dweeb. And I love that the train is the C.A. Boatman. It's just a tiny little touch that like makes me happy because he was like, I'm pretty sure there was like he was originally like attached to be involved somehow, and then he got sick, and then he wasn't a part of it, and then he passed away, so they put that in there for him. But it's a nice little touch. I love Jonathan Majors' performance in this, and he should have been nominated. I think he's amazing as an actor.
This should be nominated for everything. Honestly.
He should be. He's just genuinely one of the best actors.
I mean, the whole movie should have been nominated for everything.
Oh, everything. The fact, like in this original screenplay year, that it didn't get in is frustrating. Like, what's funny is the guy who
I wonder if it was eligible only because he, James Samuel made a short film. I want to say it's like 50 minutes long. It's about all the same characters. It's played by a lot of different actors. I think Rosario Dawson is in it. I think Kelly Hu is in it. Some other people.
Fair.
But it's the same. But it's not really a solid film. It's kind of a bunch of little segments. So I wonder if it would count. It still could have been adapted, I suppose. Yeah.
Right. It could have gotten in either. It should have been nominated in general. What I love is that
counted, I mean, and that was the same thing.
Yeah.
So.
Right. What I love is that the guy who co-wrote it with him is the what did he do on the movie?
Remember the Titans.
Director of Remember the Titans? Yeah, the director of Remember the Titans co-writes this movie. Which is super fun. Movie rules. I won't go on too long. Danielle Deadweiler, I think, is like one of the big standouts for me, and I'm really glad that she sort of caught fire out of this, and now she's got Till, which she'll probably get nominated for. Like, she's really good, and it's going to be a great talent going forward. Regina King and Lakeith Stanfield are my two favorite parts of the supporting cast. Idris Elba is really good. Like, I love all of it. So, I've like talked ad nauseum in many Letterboxd reviews how much I love this movie. This time, I did see it in the theater. I wanted that said. It was playing in the theater down in Fargo, North Dakota. So I did catch it. That's the first time I saw it was in the theater. Loved it. But I this time it's 5. It went up from a 4.5 to a 5 stars. I adore this one.
Yeah. We don't talk about ratings yet.
Spoiler. I just realized that.
We don't talk about.
We're gonna jump to the part of the show. Jeez.
We don't talk about Bruno. I'm sorry.
Bar.
No. So I only saw this movie for the first time a few months ago. And by a few months ago, I mean like maybe October. And yeah, no, this movie's phenomenal. Like the color palette's incredible, the direction's incredible, the story, it's so tightly written. Like the whole thing about what's the name of the group? It's like the Red Hood Gang.
Crimson Hood Gang.
Like I love that little that scene in the barn with Damon Wayans Jr. is just so good. Just the tension that's built in that. But yeah, no, this movie, the performances in this movie are just incredible. Like, I'm glad you brought up Danielle Deadweiler because she's phenomenal in this. But honestly, my standout is absolutely Regina King. The way that Regina King, like, just that monologue about her sister as she's carving that apple, Jesus Christ. It's so chilling, and just like the affectation that she has on her vocals, it's just it kind of reminds. And this is going to sound really weird. It's going to sound really weird when I say this, but it kind of reminds me of Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada, where she's speaking at a level that like forces you to listen to her. And
it was in and out for me.
Yeah,
I think what she was doing with her voice was in and out for me. That was the only downside of this movie for Regina King. I think her performance is great, but like the way she was.
But I also, I also just like love how like they clearly show you how tiny of a woman she is, but she's still super intimidating. Like she's standing next to like 6'2", 6'3" Idris Elba, and you're still incredibly scared of her. And the whole fight scene, like the climactic fight scene at the end, where especially between her and Zazie Beetz, where just like it's
so
just
good.
all of these gorgeous, incredible colors, just combined with this
And that
ultra
scream.
violence.
The scream, I'm just like, let's go.
That oh my god, what a great moment that is. I also love the twist at the end. It's just really well done. I was not expecting it. Yeah, no, this movie is just absolutely incredible. More people need to watch this. I'm really sad that this is a movie that not a lot of people talk about as much as it should be.
I think it's also the main thing is like the twist at the end, but they don't like it doesn't change how he feels or what he does. Like at the end, like normally
It's
you're like,
gonna be
where
the
was
same
he?
outcome anyway.
Yeah, he's like, now I'm just crying about it, but it's going to be the same fucking outcome. Which I think is what makes that scene even more badass because he's just like, well, think about it, and he keeps saying it and just kills him. I still love the part where I don't know who's the actor that played the older guy, but he's like, when the thing blows up and he goes, they're like, what the fuck was that? And he goes, but is that his left arm or his right arm? Like
No,
the arm is just,
oh yeah,
yeah, so good.
what a great
such
moment.
an interesting.
I
world
watched
that they build in this. Go ahead. Sorry.
I watched this with my dad on this rewatch, and we have kind of similar opinions on movies, but we definitely have different opinions on things. He loved this movie and immediately started asking me about people like Jonathan Majors and Delroy Lindo and like things like that. So
I have not personally talked to anyone who has actually watched it that didn't love it.
Yeah.
Once I can get them to watch
feel like
they're converts automatically.
I still think this movie. I thought this movie would be like even like the average rating was like a 3.6 like on Letterboxd, which seems like low for Letterboxd standards. Because I'm like in love with this film and the world that they're able to create. I just think like that's what I love, and I think if there's a sequel, like I'm all for whatever they do next in the world. I would just like more westerns to like tackle this. I think, and not the co-host here, not to like tie it, but it's like what they decided to do is similar to like what Lynn did with Hamilton. It's like I'm painting the forefathers as it would look like today. Like if America was discovered today, this is what it would look like. It's great to tell this story because like you could have easily Tom Hardy, and did a who's who of white actors and did this exact same story, but
I don't know.
and then tell that important story.
Well, the thing about it is, it's not even like a revisionist history because they say that 1 out of every 4 cowboys was black because especially like once slaves were freed, that a lot of them moved out to the
They're
west.
They're all real people.
Cities and things, and so these towns of all black people existed, and a lot of these cowboys were, and so it's not even like a revisionist thing. But I agree. But I mean, yes, you could have made it with white people, but I'm glad they didn't because I mean, I think the soundtrack would have been completely different, and that's one of the things I love most about it is this Western music with a hip hop flair to it. Go on YouTube. There's some videos of like James Samuel's performing some of this stuff live, and it's amazing. I love this stuff.
We would have had a soundtrack by Sam Hunt.
I was talking about the opening, but when the second scene, when he goes to the priest and when he's like, "You must have caught me in my past," and blah blah blah, and there still guns him down, and it's the dramatic like shoot him high like where they all are. But I still love that scene when the guy goes, "Now turn him in. Why don't you turn him yourself for $5,000? Why don't you turn him yourself? Because I'm wanted for 10." It's just such a great line.
I'm worth 10.
I will say, I don't know if y'all know this, but James Samuel, he is as of now scheduled to be making a superhero film that is not a Marvel or DC, like his own thing, and he's working with.
Well, it's based on a comic book, but it's not a major Marvel or DC.
Is it like a
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that, but Kent Powers, the guy who wrote Soul and Night in Miami, he's going to be writing that. So maybe a superhero movie to actually get excited for. I don't know.
Yeah, before that, though, he's doing a biblical epic called The Book of Clarence. It stars like Keith Stanfield, along with a bunch of other people he's worked with before, as well as like James McAvoy and some others just signed up
Mhm.
recently. I don't remember the whole cast, but I'm looking up to see that.
Fucking
I will say in this movie, I mean, we
Benedict
talked about a lot of the
Cumberbatch, maybe?
individual scenes. The one scene I think I love most in this movie is the scene where they take the train and break out Idris Elba.
Yes.
'Cause I think that
I was
scene-
just about to bring that scene
the
up.
That's
slow-mo
So great.
The
is
CA
everything
boat.
I love about this movie encapsulated in one scene, because you have the very clever, especially Keith Stanfield. You have the clever dialogue and the ways the characters are interacting. I just love his personality and the way he's dealing with them. You have the awesome shots, like the one shot where all of a sudden, like all the guns come out towards pointing at all the passengers. I'm thinking you have the introduction of Idris Elba, as he comes out of the darkness, out of that tank cell, whatever you want to call it. And then there's that moment at the end of the scene where he's like, "Can anybody here drive a train?" And the one guy's like,
Who
"Yeah."
here knows how to drive a train?
And he's like, "Okay, everybody but him." And then you see like the slow motion thing of people getting shot all over the place. And I just loved everything about this. Well, actually, not everything. There's one thing that did bug me in this movie was the CG blood, but I'll give them that. I can overlook that.
When
love
they stand outside, go ahead.
I was gonna say my favorite part of that is almost just the introduction where they walk in or walk up and he's like, he could have been saying nincompoop. We ain't no nincompoops. It's such a great way to get Regina King's like entire characterization. You must be the hero, and just dresses him down is so good. That's the best scene of the movie to me. I love that scene.
When she's talking through, he's like, let the boy go. And it's like, you just let ours go, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, Regina King's just getting tired and shoots him. And it's just like, and he starts talking, yeah, she doesn't like arithmetic. Like, you need to just open this door. Like, it's it is just great. It just, like, he's like, damn it, Regina. Like, I gotta, like, I'm trying to get this door open. It's brilliant. It's just a brilliant movie. I think a lot more people need to check this out. I think about the soundtrack. Yeah.
My favorite line in the whole thing is, I'm lightning with the blam blams. I love RJ Power, and he's so good.
He was so good in this movie.
Favorite line of the whole movie.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Okay. Anybody else got anything else they want to talk about this? I don't want to rush anybody on it.
Keon Cole needs more work as an actor.
Yes, he does.
Oh, when she I will say the scene where Lakeith Stanfield ends up killing the guy, and are you gonna give me this? Are you gonna and they do the square off again and the countdown, he's like, you just shoot me too, like with the count. And then she pops him in the neck and he goes, yeah, he would have killed you. It was like such like a justified line of just like, yeah, he's quicker than you. Like, it was just brilliant. Like,
just one tiny thing, something I just really enjoyed. This one specific shot of the movie I want to talk about is the shot where I think it's Jonathan Majors just standing there, and all of a sudden the camera moves over his shoulder because you hear this cock of a gun, and the camera moves, and you see Lakeith Stanfield pointing the gun at him, and then the camera moves again, you see R.J. Seiler pointing the gun at him. I love the way that shot was done. It's everything about the movie is great.
Dude, I wish I could have saw it in theaters. It's brilliant.
Yeah, nobody did.
Great on the big screen.
Brian, what's your rating?
It may be going to a 5. It's like a 4.92 at the moment. It's like I think I'm probably going to give it up to 5. Yeah.
I'm going. It's 5. I just moved it. I can't wait to revisit it, and it will be on the rotation of movies. It's a top 100 for me for sure, and I overlooked this for way too long. It's exactly a movie that I absolutely love. Scott.
4.5. Sometimes a movie is just cool, and that's all it needs to be. Like, that's this movie. 4.5.
Bar.
A very, very strong 4.5.
Okay. And Koho.
I spoiled earlier. It went up to a 5 on this watch. It's
All
top
right.
100 material. I love it. I love this movie.
Okay. So that's the show this week. I actually don't have the panel for next week right now. Like next month off the top of my head. We filmed this one a little early so we can get this be done for a little bit of a break. But we will be back. It'll be Brian, it'll be Scott and me, hopefully, unless schedule doesn't work out, and then we'll have 3 other people. Yeah. Thanks for being here. See you next week. Or next month. I always say next week, but next month.